Wow. I mean, there's a lot of shade this morning, and it's not because it's overcast and raining outside. The verbal shots have been fired, the battle lines have been drawn, the egos, the toxic masculinity at an all time high. You know, there are certain times in life, and these moments may only happen once or twice throughout your lifetime, but there will come a point in your life when you're down on your luck. Maybe you have been blackballed from your industry. Maybe you have been labeled difficult to work with and no one will touch you. You are at the top of the mountain and you find yourself rolling all the way towards the bottom into the massive embrace of the Lizzo. Have you seen the size of the Lizzo's hands? They're the size of the bruised caboose after the Butt Bongo Festival. They're huge. When you find yourself at your lowest point, you have one person willing to give you a chance, one person willing to give you a lifeline, one man willing to take a chance on you to give you the opportunity to revitalize your career. In my opinion, in my eyes, you owe a debt of gratitude to that man for the rest of your life, because without them, you don't exist. 10 years ago, that is exactly what Skip Bayless did for Stephen A. Smith. Without the helping hand of Skip Bayless, Stephen A's working the door at Club Shay Shay, making sure patrons aren't smuggling their own Preparation H so they had to overpay for it at the bar. Without Skip Bayless, there is no Stephen A. Smith. He would be forgotten. And that's not my opinion. In the past, Stephen A. Smith had no problem admitting this publicly. Even though he's no longer my husband, even though he's no longer my lover, Skippy will always be my brother. But all of a sudden, after Stephen A. enters into holy matrimony and felt the warm embrace of a grown man that calls himself Shay Shay, all of a sudden, Stevie's opinion of Skippy has changed. He's become very bitter towards his savior. There's an old saying, you never kick a man while he's down. The sentiment of that saying carries even more weight when the man that you're kicking is responsible for saving your career. Earlier this week, we talked about ratings for the new and improved Undisputed. As predicted here on the channel, ratings for Undisputed have fallen into the category of huge embarrassing failure. Monday morning, the overhyped debut episode, an episode where Skip Bayless was barely featured on his own show. 131,000 people tuned in to watch disaster unfold. Remember what I said earlier this week when we talked about this? Oftentimes, when a show premieres, or in the case of Undisputed, when a show re-debuts from a long hiatus, the first episode will see a curiosity spike in ratings, and subsequent episodes, they will settle in on an average. The problem for Skip Bayless, the first episode did not see a rating spike. Ratings Monday morning were significantly lower than the final episode with Shay, which featured live divorce coverage. I told you guys the other day that ratings were only going to get worse going forward for Skip Bayless, and that is exactly what happened. Tuesday, 120,000 viewers. Wednesday, 78,000. 78,000? Really? The Discovery Channel could air live footage of a masturbating bear and draw more than 78,000 viewers. And Skip Bayless can't eclipse that number with the assistance of 3 NFL legends? Right now, Skip Bayless is at the lowest point of his sports media career. Now, you would think this would be the time for someone like Stephen A. Smith to lend his brother a helping hand. You would think this would be the time for someone like Stephen A. Smith to maybe return the favor. Now, in all fairness, Stephen A. is not obligated to do that, but the least he could do is refuse to put the supersized cucumber into the bruised caboose. I mean, isn't Skip Bayless already suffering enough? Does he really need Stephen A. Smith fueling his emotional pain? Stephen A. started off the disrespect of Skip Bayless by retweeting an article from Front Office Sports, which highlighted Undisputed status as a huge embarrassing failure. Now, to be fair, the article, it also highlighted the success of First Take, which nowadays they are calling success 400,000 viewers. But maybe this was a simple oversight from Stephen A. Smith. Maybe he retweeted the article to show his followers the success of First Take, his own show. But what I am about to share with you guys next, this cannot be disputed. This was the official first verbal shot in a war that Stephen A. Smith knows that Skip Bayless cannot win. Yesterday, Stephen A started off his Labor Day weekend by making an appearance at Club Shay Shay. Club Shay Shay, the club where Stephen can live out his fantasy of becoming Stephanie. During his appearance at Club Shay Shay, Stephen A made an exciting proclamation. To use his own words, he referred to this as his way of coming out. He wanted the world to know why he wanted Shay Shay. He wanted the world to know why he was pushing so hard to pursue Shannon Sharpe. What I'm about to show you are the thoughts of a delusional man. And I rarely say that about Stephen A. Smith. I don't always agree with him, especially when it comes to things like mythical racism, but for the most part, I feel like Stephen A. Smith is grounded. I feel like Stephen A. is a logical thinker. Maybe it was the ambiance of Club Shay Shay that threw off his logic. Maybe it was the requirement that all patrons wear the woke hat when entering this club of woke love. But outside of subjects like mythical racism, I don't know if I have ever seen Stephen A. Smith this delusional. Watch it for yourself.
The number one reason I came out, Shannon Sharpe, and I said, I want Shannon Sharpe on First Take, because I wanted the world to know that you were wanted. I didn't want you to be in a situation where the sports world looked at you and said, what'd he do? He must have done something. Persona non grata. Yep. This is a brother that I think has done a lot of good work on television that has helped our community. And as a result, it's incumbent upon me, because of the perch that I sit on, to let them know he's wanted. Don't cut him off, because that's what they did to me in 2009. I was blessed and fortunate enough to have enough connections and to do what I do to overcome it. I don't know if this brother does. So let the world know he has me.
Where do I even begin? First of all, let's start with the false narrative that the sports world thought Shannon Sharpe did something wrong. In the psychological community, this is what they call projection. Stephen A. Smith is projecting his situation. He is projecting what happened to him over 10 years ago onto Shannon Sharpe and Skip Bayless. Now, we have been covering this story since the beginning here on the channel. Not one time, not once, have I ever heard anyone ask, what did Shay Shay do wrong? Last I checked, Shay was the one who filed for divorce. Last I checked, Shay was the one who was too emotional to show up to work. Stephen A. then took it upon himself to subtly infuse the racial narrative here. This is a brother who has done a lot for our community. This man has given his time, his money, and his body to Woke United Methodist. He deserves a spot at ESPN. We need more diversity. Okay. I figured if ESPN were looking for diversity on Woke Take, they would look to bring in a minority, which at ESPN, a minority is classified as a white dude. Stephen A. also claimed that it was his personal responsibility to make sure Shay was more successful at ESPN than he was with Skippy at Fox Sports. Yeah, well, that ain't gonna be difficult considering the fact that Shannon Sharpe was a huge embarrassing failure while he was working with Skip Bayless at FS1. Towards the end of the clip, the true delusion surfaced. You heard Stephen A. make the statement, when I was blackballed, I was fortunate enough to have the connections to overcome it. No, dude, you were fortunate enough to have a connection, a single connection. Skip Bayless. This is where this interview completely falls apart, because up until this point, everything Stephen A. Smith was saying, it was fine. I mean, it was delusional, but whatever. This is the point where Stephen A. starts blaming Skip Bayless for what happened to Shannon Sharpe. He claims that Skip treated Shay unfairly. He insinuates that the way Shay was treated by Skip was wrong. Why don't we ask Max Kellerman about this? I would imagine that Max Kellerman thinks Stephen A. Smith treated him unfairly. I would imagine Max Kellerman was surprised when Stephen A. Smith filed for divorce. How come it's okay for Stephen A. to mistreat Max, but it's not okay for Skip Bayless to mistreat Shay? Not to mention the fact that Skip Bayless did not mistreat Shannon Sharpe. The biggest issue in their relationship was Shannon Sharpe's inability to realize that he was not the star of the show. And I got some bad news for Shay Shay. I hope he's not going to ESPN thinking that he's the star, because the only star at ESPN is the dude sitting across from you. A few minutes later, Stephen A. Smith said, "I had to let the industry know Shannon Sharpe is one of us. We can't let him go out like that." What do you think that means? What do you think he means when he says one of us? I'm going to speculate here. I don't know Stephen A. Smith, never met the dude, but let me tell you how I think Stephen A. viewed this divorce between Shay and Bay. I think Stephen A. Smith looked at this situation as the white man screwing over the black man, the grizzled white media veteran trying to keep the black man down. Now, even though Stephen A. did the same thing to Max Kellerman, that doesn't matter. It only matters when the racial roles are reversed. Since this divorce between Shay and Bay, Stephen A.'s opinion of Skip Bayless seems to have changed. Why? Why do you think that is? The only reason I can think of is Stephen A.'s perception of this divorce between Shay and Bay. If I'm Shannon Sharpe, this would be very, very concerning for me. Just think about it. If Stephen A. Smith could publicly betray the man who literally saved his career, why would you think you're going to be any different? It's like the lonely dude who falls in love with the married woman. He even manages to convince her to leave her husband. The thought, though, is always in the back of his mind. Will she do the same thing to me? And the answer, of course, is always yes. It's one thing for Stephen A. Smith to want to give Shannon Sharpe a lifeline. It's one thing to give Shannon Sharpe an opportunity, a chance. My thing is, why do you have to denigrate Skip Bayless while doing so? You don't have to kick a man while he's down who just so happened to save your media career. I am very interested to see how Skip Bayless is going to respond to this. Actually, I'm interested to see if Skip Bayless responds. 10 or 15 years ago, a situation like this, it would motivate Skip Bayless. He would embrace it. Now, I know he is a fighter, but I just don't know if Skip Bayless has any fight left in him. I have been watching clips of Undisputed all week this week. I don't recognize Skip Bayless anymore. I see a man that looks to have been defeated. I think all the criticism, I think all the outrage on social media, I think it's taken an emotional toll on Skip Bayless. It seems like he's trying to change who he is to try to appeal to a demographic that will never accept him. And when I say demographic, I'm not talking about racial demographics. I'm talking about the woke shit fucks. Like I told you guys the other day, I think we are seeing the beginning of the end of Skip Bayless's media career. This is a young man's game. Turn on your TV. You tell me how many 71-year-olds you see on ESPN or FS1. What makes things even worse, at the lowest point of his career, when it seems like everyone in the industry, everyone on social media is against him, the one man who should have his back, the one man that he saved at his lowest point, that man publicly betrays him. But give me your thoughts. Stephen A. Smith turns his back on Skip Bayless, or that's how I see it anyway. I don't think this marriage between Stephen A. and Shay is going to work out. Debate shows are only entertaining when the stars are disagreeing with each other. Shay and A are going to be a woke bromance. It's going to be passionate woke hugs, painfully boring television. But maybe they'll prove me wrong. Do you think Shay and A will work for ESPN? Also, give me your thoughts on Stephen A. publicly betraying Skip Bayless. Maybe you think I'm wrong here. Maybe I'm looking at this the wrong way. You let me know. Sound off in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys tomorrow.